Have you ever noticed how some people seem to glide through life's challenges with an almost magnetic confidence, as if the universe itself conspires to help them? They face setbacks, rejections, and obstacles just like everyone else, yet something about their approach transforms these experiences into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. What if I told you that this isn't luck, privilege, or some mystical gift, but a profound psychological principle that Carl Jung spent decades exploring? Imagine for a moment that you could rewire your entire relationship with uncertainty. Picture yourself walking into any situation, a job interview, a difficult conversation, a creative endeavor, carrying an unshakable inner knowing that somehow, some way, things will work out in your favor. Not because you're naive or delusional, but because you understand something fundamental about how reality operates. Jung discovered that our external world mirrors our internal landscape with startling precision, and those who master this principle unlock what he called the transcendent function, the ability to transform any circumstance into an opportunity for growth and success. This isn't about positive thinking or wishful manifestation. This is about understanding one of the most powerful secrets of human psychology. When you genuinely act as if everything always works out for you, you activate dormant psychological mechanisms that literally reshape your experience of reality. You begin to notice opportunities that were always there but invisible to your previous mindset. You develop an intuitive sense for timing and decision-making that seems almost supernatural to others. Most importantly, you stop fighting against life and start dancing with it. The question isn't whether this principle works. Jung's extensive research with thousands of patients proved its effectiveness time and again. The question is whether you're ready to abandon the familiar comfort of worry, control, and worst-case scenario thinking to embrace a radically different way of being. Are you prepared to discover why Jung believed that acting as if everything works out isn't just a strategy for success, but the very key to psychological wholeness and authentic living? Jung understood that we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. Your perception isn't a passive mirror reflecting objective reality, it's an active creator, continuously shaping and reshaping your experience through the lens of your beliefs, expectations, and unconscious patterns. When Jung worked with patients who felt perpetually unlucky or victimized by circumstances, he discovered something remarkable. Their external struggles were precise reflections of their internal psychological state. Consider how this operates in your daily life. Two people can attend the same networking event, yet one leaves with valuable connections and opportunities, while the other feels ignored and unsuccessful. The difference isn't in the event itself, but in the perceptual filters each person brings. The one who expects good things to happen notices the subtle signs of interest from others, responds to conversational openings, and radiates the kind of energy that draws people in. The one who expects rejection unconsciously broadcasts defensive body language, misses social cues, and confirms their pessimistic worldview. Jung called this phenomenon projection, but not in the way most people understand it. He wasn't simply talking about blaming others for our own faults. He was describing how our unconscious psychological content literally projects itself onto our external reality, creating experiences that mirror our deepest beliefs about ourselves in the world. When you truly believe at a cellular level that things work out for you, you unconsciously align your attention, energy, and actions with that belief. This is a magical thinking. It's sophisticated psychology. Your brain's reticular activating system, the neural network responsible for filtering information, literally highlights evidence that supports your dominant beliefs while filtering out contradictory data. When you operate from the assumption that everything works out, you become exquisitely attuned to possibilities, synchronicities, and solutions that remain invisible to those operating from fear or scarcity. The transformation happens gradually, then suddenly. As you begin to act from this new assumption, you start noticing how often things do work out, often in ways you never could have planned or predicted. This isn't because the universe changed, it's because your perception evolved, and with it, your entire reality. Jung spent considerable time studying what he termed the victim archetype and its opposite, what he called the hero's journey. He discovered that most people unconsciously identify with being at the mercy of external circumstances, believing that life happens to them rather than through them. This victim consciousness creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Because you believe you're powerless, you act powerlessly, which generates powerless results, which confirms your belief in your powerlessness. Breaking free from this pattern requires what Jung described as awakening the inner hero, not the Hollywood version of heroism involving physical courage and dramatic gestures, but the psychological heroism of taking complete responsibility for your inner state, regardless of external circumstances. The inner hero understands a fundamental truth. While you cannot control what happens to you, you have absolute sovereignty over what happens within you. When you act as if everything works out for you, you're activating this heroic aspect of your psyche. You're declaring to your unconscious mind that you are not a victim of circumstances, but a creator of experiences. This shift from victim to hero consciousness is perhaps the most profound transformation a human being can undergo. It doesn't mean bad things won't happen or that you won't face challenges. It means you approach these experiences from a fundamentally different position. The hero expects challenges and views them as opportunities for growth and development. Where the victim sees obstacles, the hero sees adventures. Where the victim feels overwhelmed by uncertainty, the hero feels excited by possibility. This isn't naive optimism. It's a mature understanding that your response to circumstances matters infinitely more than the circumstances themselves. Jung observed that individuals who successfully awakened their inner hero shared a common characteristic. They had learned to find meaning and opportunity within adversity. They understood that every setback contained the seeds of a comeback, every closed door led to a better door, and every rejection redirected them towards something more aligned with their authentic path. This heroic consciousness doesn't eliminate life's difficulties. It transforms your relationship with them entirely. One of Jung's most revolutionary insights concerned the relationship between thought and action, mind and body. Through his clinical work, he discovered that trying to change your psychology through thinking alone is often futile, but changing your actions can rapidly transform your mental and emotional state. He observed that the psyche follows the body, meaning that when you change how you move, speak, and behave, your thoughts and feelings naturally shift to match. This principle becomes powerfully relevant when learning to act as if everything works out for you. Instead of trying to convince yourself intellectually that things will work out, you begin by literally acting as someone would who genuinely believes this to be true. You walk with more confidence, speak with more conviction, take more calculated risks, and approach challenges with curiosity rather than dread. Your nervous system cannot distinguish between what you're genuinely feeling and what you're consistently acting out. When you consistently behave as someone who expects good outcomes, your neurology begins to rewire itself to support that identity. Your hormone production shifts, your brain chemistry changes, and your entire energetic signature transforms. You become someone for whom things do work out, not through magic, but through the natural consequence of embodying that expectation. This is why Jung emphasized the importance of what he called active imagination, not just visualizing desired outcomes, but actually moving and acting as if those outcomes were already emerging. When you apply for a job, you don't anxiously hope for acceptance, you prepare for success while remaining open to whatever unfolds. When you start a project, you don't focus on potential failure, you engage fully while trusting the process. The key is consistency. Your unconscious mind learns through repetition, not through occasional positive thoughts. Overwhelmed by habitual worry and doubt, by consistently acting from the assumption that things work out, you train your psychological system to operate from that foundation. Your body language changes, your decision-making improves, and your presence becomes magnetic in ways that naturally attract positive outcomes. Perhaps the most counterintuitive aspect of acting as if everything works out is that it requires letting go of your attachment to specific outcomes. Jung understood that desperate clinging to particular results actually repels them, while relaxed confidence attracts opportunities you never could have imagined. This paradox, that you must release your grip to receive what you desire, reflects a profound psychological truth about how manifestation actually works. When you're desperately attached to a specific outcome, you unconsciously broadcast energy of lack and need. Others sense this desperation, even when you think you're hiding it well. You make decisions from fear rather than wisdom, missing better opportunities because you're fixated on one particular path. Your attachment creates tunnel vision that blocks you from seeing the numerous ways your desires could be fulfilled. Acting as if everything works out means approaching goals with what Jung called passionate detachment, caring deeply about your desires while remaining unattached to exactly how they manifest. You plant seeds with intention and then trust the natural growing process rather than anxiously digging them up to check on progress. This detachment isn't indifference, it's sophisticated trust in the intelligence of life itself. This principle applies to every area of existence. In relationships, instead of desperately clinging to one person, you embody the qualities that naturally attract loving partnership. In career development, rather than forcing a specific opportunity, you develop skills and maintain networks that create multiple pathways to fulfillment. In creative endeavors, you focus on the quality of your work rather than trying to control its reception. The irony is that this detachment often accelerates the manifestation of your desires because it eliminates the energetic resistance created by attachment. When you genuinely know that things work out for you, you can pursue goals with relaxed intensity, fully engaged, yet unattached to specific timelines or methods. This state of being naturally aligns you with opportunities and synchronicities that rigid attachment blocks. Jung's most profound insight was that your external reality serves as a mirror for your internal psychological state. Life doesn't happen to you randomly. It reflects back to you the beliefs, expectations, and unconscious patterns you carry within. When you genuinely believe at the deepest level that everything works out for you, life begins to mirror that belief through your experiences. This mirroring happens through subtle but powerful mechanisms. Your belief system influences your attention, what you notice and what you ignore. It affects your interpretation of events, whether you see setbacks as failures or redirections, whether you view challenges as problems or opportunities. Most importantly, it shapes your behavior, the risks you take, the conversations you initiate, the persistence you demonstrate when facing obstacles. When you operate from the core belief that things work out, you unconsciously give yourself permission to dream bigger, act bolder, and persist longer. You become someone who takes intelligent risks because you trust your ability to handle whatever results. You engage more authentically in relationships because you're not desperately trying to manage others' perception. You pursue meaningful work because you believe you deserve fulfillment rather than just security. This isn't about deluding yourself or ignoring reality. It's about recognizing that your beliefs about reality significantly influence what reality becomes for you. Two people can face identical circumstances, yet have completely different experiences based on their underlying belief systems. The one who believes life is difficult and unfair will find abundant evidence to support that view. The one who believes life is constantly offering opportunities for growth and joy will discover endless confirmation of that perspective. Jung discovered that individuals who successfully transformed their lives shared this common characteristic. They had learned to use their belief system as a creative tool rather than a limiting prison. They understood that belief isn't about blind faith. It's about choosing the most empowering interpretation of circumstances and then acting from that interpretation consistently. The journey of learning to act as if everything works out for you isn't about adopting a new set of techniques or strategies. It's about fundamentally transforming your relationship with uncertainty, challenge, and possibility. Jung understood that this transformation requires courage, not the kind of courage needed to face external dangers, but the psychological courage required to abandon familiar patterns of worry, control, and worst-case scenario thinking. This shift demands that you become comfortable with not knowing exactly how things will unfold while maintaining unshakable faith that they will unfold in your favor. It requires developing what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposing forces in creative tension without needing to resolve them immediately. You can simultaneously care deeply about outcomes while remaining detached from controlling them. You can prepare thoroughly for opportunities while staying open to unexpected possibilities. The practical application of this wisdom begins with small, consistent choices. Notice when you're operating from fear or scarcity and consciously choose to act from abundance instead. When facing challenges, ask yourself, how would someone who believes everything works out approach this situation? Then embody that approach, even if it feels uncomfortable initially. Remember that this isn't about naive optimism or magical thinking. It's about sophisticated psychological alignment with the creative forces of life itself. When you act as if everything works out for you, you activate dormant potentials within yourself and align with opportunities that were always present but previously invisible. Jung spent his lifetime studying the human capacity for transformation, and his conclusion was both simple and profound. We become what we consistently embody. When you consistently embody someone for whom life works out favorably, life begins to work out favorably, not through mystical intervention, but through the natural consequence of psychological alignment with possibility rather than limitation. The question isn't whether this principle works, but whether you're willing to abandon the familiar comfort of worry to embrace the magnificent uncertainty of trust.